Right, so I am presenting on behalf of Karri Neldner, who unfortunately cannot be here today. And together with Daniel Haun, I'm leading the Children and Nature project. And it's very exciting because today, for the first time, we can present some of our first findings of this project. So human relationships with other animals are very complex. We share our homes with dogs, but we eat sheep. We donate quite a lot of money for orangutans, but we care less about possibly more endangered bird species or insects. And we easily kill a fly, but we never kill a butterfly. And it gets even a little bit more complicated because our attitudes towards animals, they do not vary only depending on species, but even for one specific species, attitudes might vary across different cultural contexts. And maybe to give one example, if you think of dogs, unlike in Western societies, in most countries across the globe, dogs are not kept as pets, but they live as stray dogs, or they might be used as guard dogs, or they might even be eaten. So the attitudes can vary very much across different cultural contexts, even for one specific species. So what really interested us then was how such different mindsets towards animals emerge during autogeny. And this is what we are investigating in the Children and Nature project. So we are interested in which cognitive and emotional attitudes children have towards other animals, which factors might influence these attitudes. So for example, does it matter how similar an animal species is to us biologically or psychologically, how familiar we are with a species, or how useful a species is for us. And as I've just said, we are interested in how these attitudes vary across different cultural contexts and also across different ages. So to say a little bit more about our general approach, as I've said, we combine a developmental cross-cultural approach and include children as well as adolescents and also adults. So we look at quite a large age range. We look at participants from both urban and rural areas across a large number of different communities. And for the beginning of this project, we mostly focused on animal species, but we are now extending this project also towards plants and biodiversity in more general. Very crucial for our project was the use of a mixed methods approach, which means that we combine mostly quantitative but also qualitative methods from both psychology and also anthropology, and then use our findings from, for example, interviews, questionnaires, to develop anthropologically informed, culture-sensitive experimental approaches, which still enable us to compare our findings across different communities. And as part of this approach, we also we have established a large network with local collaborators from different communities who have been trained in these methods and are involved in the planning of the studies and also data collection and analysis, and they are also included as co-authors on any publications that come out of this project. And this is to just very quickly show you the different countries we are working with almost 50 different collaborators in 17 countries, including more than 30 different communities, so both from urban and rural areas, but also different ethnic groups. And to acknowledge the work of all these people, I would like to at least quickly show their faces that you can better relate to who is actually part of this network at the different sites. Okay, as I said, we have trained our collaborators also in conducting semi-structured interviews with the children to create a rich database and to learn more about their attitudes towards other animals before we start to plan experiments. As part of these interviews, we have asked the children which animals they know, which they like or dislike, fear or find beautiful, whether they know concepts such as pet, which is not known in actually most of the societies, which animal products they use at home, where they meet and learn about animals, and if they consider humans as categorically different from other animals. And for the purpose of my talk, I would like to focus on this question: if they grant thoughts and emotions to other animals. We have heard a little bit about this already, but what we know is that at least for adults, In several countries, they tend to grant animals the capacity to feel basic emotions, but deny them usually complex cognition, for example, wishes, intentions, and thoughts, and also so-called secondary emotions like gratitude, pride, or shame. And this tendency to deny mental experience to animals is usually associated with reduced valuation of moral worth of other species. However, what is not known, or what we know very little about, is when and how children consider the mental experience of other animals, and whether the onset and also the developmental pathways might vary across different cultural contexts and also across urban and rural settings. Okay, so from these interviews, I will present data from 15 countries, from 32 different sites. And at each of these sites, we conducted up to 50 interviews with participants of varying ages, so between 4 and 17 years, so quite a large age range. I did not, excuse me, I did not include the adult data here. And what we did after we translated and transcribed all the interviews, we coded the specific animal species or animal group. So kids either said, for example, lion. Some even mentioned Latin names. Others refer to larger group like predators. So we coded what they have mentioned. And we also coded the reasons the child gave us, for example, liking or disliking a specific species using MaxQDA. And we used a thematic analysis for developing these codes. For the analysis, we included the answers to 2 questions. Do animals have thoughts, and do animals have feelings? And only if the child said yes to either of the questions, then we continued to ask them, do they have feelings or thoughts similar or different compared to humans? And because we had small samples in each community spread across a broad age range, we used Bayesian statistics and examined the probability of the children to say either yes, no, or partially at the different ages, and I will say something more about it in a second, what this means. Okay, here is a summary table of the proportion with which children answered yes, partially, or no to the question, do animals have feelings on the left side, and do animals have thoughts on the right side, depending on the children's age without the consideration of the cultural context. Pink color indicates yes, yellow no, and partially in green means that either the children were not sure, or they said yes, but, because, for example, they limited their answer to a very specific species. So, for example, yes, dogs have emotions, but other species don't. And from a very first visual inspection, it seems that children are a little bit more likely to say that animals have feelings and thoughts, which is consistent with previous research for adults, which I've just been presenting. But in general, they more often gave the answer yes than no to both of these questions, and they answered more with yes with increasing age. And this pattern remains when we analyze the results depending on country. What we see here is the probability of children answering yes to the question, do animals have feelings? And do animals have thoughts? Green lines indicate urban settings, red lines rural settings, and children's age. I hope you can see it as shown on the x-axis. What we can see is that across cultures, feelings have a higher probability of being granted to animals than thoughts. And urban children are more likely to grant thoughts or feelings to animals than children from rural settings, but there are exceptions, like for example in Zambia, and if you have time, I can explain this a little bit more. We have an interesting outlier in the data, and this is a hunter-gatherer community in Namibia, where unlike in all other contexts, assigning thoughts and feelings decreased with increasing age. We have no proper explanation yet for this finding, but again, if you have time, I can explain some ideas in some more detail. So to summarize this part of my talk, there's mostly cultural continuity, as most children in almost all cultures said that animals have thoughts and feelings. However, they are less likely to say that animals have thoughts compared to feelings, And as I said, urban children are more likely to grant thoughts and feelings compared to children from rural settings. Again, I hope you can see this in the figure. The gap between thoughts and feelings is most strong earlier in development, and it's about 9 to 12 years that we see convergence across the ability or the probability to grant thoughts and feelings to animals. And we think this is very interesting, as after 9 years of age, at least in Western communities, children acquire most of their knowledge of animals, and between the ages of 13 and 17 years, they also show an increase in moralistic values towards other species. However, this developmental pattern appears to contradict the patterns of mind denial in the adult population, which we also see in our data, which opens up questions about when children actually start to adopt adult-like patterns of mind denial. And at the moment, we do not have a good answer to this question. Okay, you have seen this figure on the left already. Now, as I said in the beginning, in a second step, we ask the children if they think animals have similar thoughts and feelings compared to humans. And this is a summary of the results. Children seem to be more likely to answer with no, and also partially. And this is particularly obvious for thoughts. And here are the probabilities for answering yes, shown for each country, and again for the different communities. And here we see a different kind of patterns in the data. So for feelings, we don't see strong developmental changes in any of the plots, while the children seem to have similar opinion on whether animals have feelings at any age. However, for thoughts, the probability of answering yes is very low, or even close to zero in most communities, except for Colombia and the 2 communities in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But still, their probabilities are lower for thoughts compared to their answers for feelings. Overall, this means children and adolescents are denying that animals think in ways similar to humans. And to summarize this part, what I've just said, children strongly deny that animals think similar to humans, which we found really surprising because they were very likely to say yes, they have thoughts, but they don't think in ways similar to humans. And there is variation across cultures and communities in how much children think animals feel similar to humans, but this does not seem to depend on their age. What are the next steps? We are still in the process of coding the interviews, so 2 countries are still missing. And what we now do is we identify the specific emotions and also cognitive skills children grant or deny to other animals. So we look at the specific emotion terms, for example, they mentioned in the interviews, and we have a closer look at the children's explanations they give for the presence or absence of these skills. To give just one example, some German children said when I asked them, why do you think animals don't have thoughts? They said, I can see if an animal is happy or sad, but I can't see if they think. So it's not that they in general deny, at least these kids, deny that animals have thoughts, but they found it very difficult to estimate if this is the case or not. And now, since we have these first results of our exploratory analysis, the next step, and this is actually what we're already doing, is to develop experiments to test specific hypotheses derived from these first findings. And with this, I would like to take the opportunity to very much thank all the communities and our local collaborators who actually did all the work. And I would like to draw the attention to the fantastic core team who's basically coding for the last 3 years. Thank you very much. One question? So there's time for one question, I've been told.
So what do you think happens in Namibia?
Sorry, say again?
What happened in Namibia?
In Namibia, yeah. We thought we have a very clever explanation because as a hunter-gatherer society, we thought they were the only group that actually made their living from hunting and killing other animals. But this is not really true because they are now very much restricted in their movements. They are not active, or they are not allowed to actively hunt. They do sometimes, but they shouldn't. And in the Congo data, there's also hiding another hunter-gatherer community. They are more a forest-based community, but still they hunt, and they find a very similar pattern to the other groups, and not unlike the Namibian hunter-gatherers. So at the moment, if you have any ideas, please share them. We have no explanation yet. Thank you for the question.
Are they also the only ones who actually interact, not just kill or possibly can kill, but also just interact with animals in their everyday life?
No, the other group does as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is we were hoping this would be the explanation, but it's not. Thank you.